So my first question is this your first time in India? And how do you like the culture here?
It is my fifth time in India. I enjoyed the culture very much. I enjoyed the cultural program last night, but I always enjoy seeing the different architecture and the arts very much.
So we are talking about startup these days, but
Mhm.
as much as success, failures are also there. So what qualities a startup leader should have to survive in such a vocab and dynamic environment that we have today?
It's a whole series of characteristics. The college I teach at actually has one of the better entrepreneurship programs in universities in America. When one of my colleagues has a website that might be of interest to your students, where you can just look at it does a weekly kind of podcast type thing on what it takes to be a good entrepreneur, different issues. But some of the things, I think somebody has to have good training in the basic business skills. You see some people who haven't, the numbers aren't going to work out. The amount of time they spend to make a product and
Mostly
to
in
sell
social
it.
enterprises, the numbers are not good.
Yeah.
Mostly in social enterprises, when they initially start, the numbers are not very good.
Well, I'm talking about somebody spends hours and hours making a product that they sell for $1 US. Not just that their sales aren't high, but they're not going to ever make money on the product. So there has to be a basic understanding of costing and accounting and financing and marketing. Sometimes startup companies, the people are real interested in doing a particular thing, but the business side of it hasn't been thought out. They'd like to own a store, for example, and they're going to sell something, but where they fit into the whole marketing scheme that hasn't been worked through. So I think in America at least, probably not the students I'd be talking to here would already understand this. But in America, a lot of the startups fail because the basic business model hasn't been thought through. So I think somebody has to do that. I think there has to be an ability to adapt. Most companies, if you look through the history of most of the big successful startups that have made it, have gone through a lot of radical transformations. Nike, for example, has changed what they are a lot of times. So it's important to be able to adapt and to see the opportunities that are there. All of those things are important.
Yes, sir. All these things are important for an entrepreneur to see the need. In the developing countries, there are many needs, but in the developed country, there are a limited sort of needs. So, what difference is there in their mindset of leadership and in countries like India? Like we have many needs, and leaders here are identifying those needs and working towards it. But there are many developed countries and many big companies who are already working successfully towards those needs and covering these needs, like Uber.
Right, but we also have a lot of small companies that are identifying needs and doing startups and satisfying those needs. So I think a lot of the basic skills are probably the same, but very much different application in that the middle class in America is probably broader, for example. So different ways of targeting markets, but some of the things I've heard of is some of the medical tourism startups, for example. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. American companies often look at India and think that you have a tremendous amount of opportunities that we don't have. Some of the more basic manufacturing kind of situations where you could manufacture things. One of our colleagues at the conference was talking about a company that started manufacturing sheets and selling them to American hospitals. And you apparently can compete with China. An American company probably couldn't compete with China. So there's a nice little niche market. It's not a little market, it's a huge market. But it's making sheets for American hospitals. It is a niche that India can do that we can't do. But also some of the manufacturing things such as generic drugs. That's another thing where a lot of people in America are looking at some of the generic drug companies and they're looking at how costly our labor is and saying how are we going to be able to compete with companies in India. And India is a world leader in that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I hope I answered that question.
Yes, sir.
But if not, I'll try again.
To a certain extent. Sir, we talked about ethics like Mr. Ratan Tata. So, according to you, what role ethics play in a leader's life?
A tremendous role. And I try to explain to my students in healthcare. I teach, each week we have a ethics discussion. And I try to teach to my students ethics isn't, at one level it's about being wrong or right, but at another level it becomes different ethical standards. So for example, it's an MD wanting to get a new piece of machinery because he feels it's not right to be using the old piece of machinery. And it's the hospital manager that would have to buy it, saying it's just too expensive, we can't have the whole hospital go down to satisfy just those patients. So we can have different ethical standards colliding. We can have the people in Botswana saying, why should there be a patent on HIV drugs? And the people in the US saying, if we didn't have this patent, people wouldn't develop drugs. So we can have, I think it's important to understand that ethics isn't usually about right or wrong. It's about different value systems and how a manager can negotiate those two, and how they can keep everybody happy.
Balance.
Yeah, balance.
So my last question, how was your experience of this conference and a message for our students, Jaipuriya students?
It's a wonderful experience. I've been here to conferences once before and around India, and I always find it to be a tremendous experience. It's a bit out of the box, as they say, for an American to come to an Indian conference and to think about things from a really different perspective, because things are different here. In some ways it's the same, some ways it's really different. I've told the story that the first day I was here, I got here before my friends on my first trip. I went outside the hotel and I was hoping I could catch a cab. And in America, you'd maybe have to wait a few minutes for a cab or wave one down. And there were 30 cab drivers all waiting to get. And the whole notion of what competition is like in India versus here. So to experience these things firsthand is really great. So I would tell the students a message my dad told me: be nice to everybody because someday they might be your boss. A lot of the students will someday interview with somebody that they met in school, and so your job search is starting even now. I've interviewed 2 people who I was in school with, and I've been interviewed once by somebody who I was in school with. So I think it's probably harder for somebody in India than it is for somebody in America. I think there's more competition for the jobs in India than there is in America. But try to network, try to go to social events and meet people and find mentors. All of those things would be good. And I hope they're successful, and I hope I see them again as they go up their careers.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you.